This is a number one wood, and it's called a driver, and Larry, sitting on the front pew, asked if I was going to drive home a point. I said, if I am, sitting on the front pew is not where you want to be. Today we're going to talk about a focused heart, how it is that we can keep our life and get our life on purpose and focus. We had our first annual Unity Golf Tournament last Sunday, and we're going to do it again. Probably not wait till next year to do it. It was a lot of fun. I'd heard a story once about this group of ministers that played together quite frequently, sort of like I did when I lived in Madison, Tennessee. The local golf course let us play every single Monday. It was a slow day for them, and they didn't charge the ministers anything. But this particular group had gone out to a brand new course they had never played before. And one of the ministers had a couple of very good holes, so he got the honors. Now, honor means that you get to tee off first. Being unacquainted with this course, he just sort of took aim at where he was going to go and got his stance, and he swung, and he actually hit a very good shot. It went over the trees and curved toward a green that he saw. There was a few oohs and ahs from the other guys in the foursome, and he thought they were thinking, man, what a great shot. None of them said that. They just sort of oohed and ahed, you know. Now, when their turn came up, they went to the right of the fairway. So he says, you know, I'm going to get him again. I'm in the lead so far. I'm going to get him again. When he comes to his ball, he finds that he has sort of gone off to the rough a little bit, but he has a clear space to go towards the green. The other guys are on the other side of the fairway, so they don't see him as he makes one of the best shots he's ever made in his whole life. You know the kind of shot, the kind that you hit and you follow through and you pose. You hold the pose just like the camera was there. The only difference was there was nobody to see his shot. And it went right directly towards the green. It didn't quite make it on the green, but he was all set for his third shot. He says, man, this is going to be a great hole. Now, when he walked up to the green, he noticed that there were some fellows already putting on that green, and they were not his fellows. And he looked around, and his fellows were over on a different green. And he realized that he had actually shot for the wrong green. And of course, he lost that hole. Now, if you played golf at all, you know that he could have avoided that by doing a very simple thing. And that is to look at the scorecard. Because on the scorecard, there is actually a drawing of every hole. This is the tee, this is the fairway, it curves here, it curves there, here's a sand trap, here's a pond, and here's the green you're going for. Now, had he consulted the map, he wouldn't have driven towards the wrong green. But you know us men. Mrs. Moses says the reason that the Hebrews wandered in the wilderness for 40 years was because Moses was unwilling to ask for directions. That's true of most of us. If he'd only looked at that scorecard or asked somebody, is this the green I should be heading for? But no, sort of like the three guys that were hiking. They were on an adventure going through the woods and through a forest that they had never gone through before. And they come to this rather wide and rough river that they needed to cross. And they sat there debating what to do, and one of them said, well, I'm going to pray. And he says, dear God, I need strength to be able to swim across this river. Having prayed that, he gets into the water and he starts swimming. Now, the middle of the river was rougher than the side of it, and sure enough, his strength waned, and the currents just washed him on down the river. The second guy, having seen that, he says, well, I need to pray for something different. Strength is not going to get me across. He said, God, please send me some help. And sure enough, this great big log floats up to the side of the bank. He says, that's it. If I get on that log and swim, I'll have least resistance. I won't be down in the water. I'll be on top of it a little bit, and I'll make it across. But again, he got halfway across. The currents were so strong, it swept the log and him all the way down the river. The third guy, noticing that one had prayed for strength, the other one had prayed for help, decided he needed to pray for something different. So he says, dear God, give me wisdom. And poof, he was turned into a woman. And she reached into her backpack and read the map. and walked 300 yards upstream and crossed over the bridge. Now, the good news for us as we try to journey through life is that we have a map. We have sort of a template, if you would, given to us, and it's Jesus the Christ. See, we believe that Jesus came to show us the way. And if we look at his life, if we look at his teachings, and do it the way he did it, we're going to keep ourselves from going towards the wrong green, heading off in the wrong direction, and getting lost in the world. And if we look at Jesus, we see that his heart was focused. And he was focused on three things. The first thing, of course, he was focused on was God. If you read the scriptures and see what he did, he often went apart to pray. He spent long periods of time, one time 40 days in the wilderness, just to get in tune with God, to get in harmony with God. And as we talked last Sunday, he did this so often and he did it so well that he could eventually say, I do not do anything except the Father does it through me. I do not say anything except the Father tells me to say it. He got so close and so intimate with God that he could eventually say, the Father and I are one. That's the template that we have. In Romans 8, it says, we know that all things work together for good for those of us who love the Lord, or for those of us who are focused on God. See, we tend in our lives to be misfocused. There's a phrase we have for that in the intellectual realm called attention deficit disorder. And some of us have that spiritually. We do not focus our attention upon the right things. We tend to focus upon work, or upon gaining money, or being materialistic and getting a lot of goods in our lives, and we miss the mark in that we're laying our treasure up in the wrong place. That's why Jesus said, don't lay your treasure here on earth where it's going to be destroyed, but lay it in heaven. And heaven, of course, he's talking about in a higher level of consciousness. Lay it here in the realm of thought, in the spiritual realm, and all these things will become yours. And when we're not focused on God, we tend to focus on other people, and we try to meet their needs, called codependency. There was this man whose job it was to run a lighthouse, and it ran on oil. And one day, a needy family came to him. They had run out of oil to heat their house, and he gives them some of the lighthouse oil. Another day, another man comes, and he's a farmer, and his tractor has broken down. He needs oil for the machining, for the mechanism, and so he gives him some oil. And then there was a father that had children that came, and he didn't have enough oil to light his house, so he gave him some oil. And when it came to light the lighthouse, he didn't have any oil left. And many ships wrecked that night because he was not able to light the lighthouse. Don't we do that? Don't we get so focused on living somebody else's version of our life, or trying to fulfill somebody else's need, that we miss the focus that we need to have on God, on good, on grand, and to be able to do that? In Plato's Republic, there's a story of a ship's crew. Now, the crew on this ship thought that their captain was insane, because the captain was trying to use as his compass and finding his direction in life the stars. Well, from their point of view, that didn't make sense. How could the stars guide you across this ocean? Would you not rather study the seas? Would you not look at the winds and see where it's going to carry you? Would you not study the currents and see where the currents would take you? But no, he studied the stars, so they thought that he was crazy, and they threw him overboard. And they tried to navigate their way, and they shipwrecked. How many of us have had an experience of our life where we have personally shipwrecked our lives because we haven't had as our compass God? We haven't used the divine within us to guide us as we live from day to day. Jesus was focused on God. As we learn to do that through prayer and meditation, we will not go astray. We will stay on course. Jesus was also focused on purpose. He was very clear who he was, why he was here, and what it was his to do. Now, like most of us, it took a while for him to learn that. In the temptation story, when he went into the wilderness for 40 days, that was his opportunity to get clear as to what he was going to accomplish on this earthly plane. See, throughout his life, he was going to face that temptation. Judas wanted Jesus to go ahead and gather an army around him and become a military might and overthrow the Romans and set the Jewish people free who were enslaved to the Romans. And that's why he turned him in, because Jesus said, no, that's not the way I'm going to do it. Another one said, well, why don't you just feed all the people, do all these miracles, and you'll be so great, people will set you up as king. You'll be known as the king of the Jews. And he says, no, my kingdom is not of this heaven. He got very clear as to what God wanted him to do. He came to seek and to save the lost, to teach us a new way of living, to demonstrate to us how to overcome and how to succeed in life. When you and I become clear about what it is that we're to do and be on this earthly plane, our lives will take on a whole new meaning, and everything will begin to move for us in an easy and flowing way. But aren't we always distracted? Aren't we distracted by somebody else's scheme? Well, if you were to go do this, I think your talent lies in this area. I think you would be great at. And we get involved in this project and that project. And again, that attention deficit disorder comes in, and we don't really stick with anything long enough for it to work its work. The seed that we plant in consciousness needs time to grow, just like the seed we plant in the farm needs time to come to fruition. But a lot of us will go off onto this purpose, onto this cause, into this little job or little thing over here, and keep not lighting on anything long enough to really make it work. When we get clear, we begin to live the purpose-driven life, like the book is about, except we come to understand what it is that God really wants us to do with our life, and then we are able to go do it. And the Course in Miracles says once we commit to doing that one thing, then nothing can stand in our way. Nothing can stop us from succeeding. Jesus was focused on God. Jesus was focused on the purpose. But Jesus also was focused on service. In Mark 10:45, it says, the Son of Man did not come to serve, to be served rather, but to serve. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And he demonstrated that on many occasions, but none more dramatic than when at the Last Supper, when the disciples had forgotten to do that which the lowest servant in any household was supposed to do, which is to wash each other's feet. He demonstrated to them. And he took off his robe and put on the cloth, and he knelt at their feet and washed their feet. And he said to them, if you want to be great, you must first learn how to serve. You must become a servant. Now, most of us tend to approach life from the other point of view. We don't ask, how can I serve? We ask, what can I get? Life owes me. And we look to the government to solve all the problems. We look to the school system to solve all the problems. We look to the church to do this, that, and the other. And we find that we have an attitude about life that is more like taking rather than giving. Now, John F. Kennedy wanted to turn that around. And he said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And there comes a time in our life when we begin to understand that giving is more important than receiving. In fact, we learn the spiritual law of life that we're not going to receive unless we learn how to give. Not just money, but time, talent, skills, information, friendship. And then we choose to live life a little bit differently. And when we choose to approach it from the servant point of view, we're not asking, what can I get? But what can I give? And how can I give? This Memorial Day, we have to pause and remember that we are here today as free people because some people chose to give. And chose to give the ultimate gift, their very own life, for our freedom. It's an important point of view. We read about and hear about on television about the football player. His name is Pat Tillman. Pat just recently turned down a multi-million-dollar contract to play in the National Football League in order to go and join the armed services. And so we learned last week that he was killed in action. And then we learned, I think just yesterday, maybe the day before, that it was friendly fire that killed him, not an enemy. And yet Pat did what Pat wanted to do. But see, he began to ask the question, not what I can get out of life, which was a contract that was going to take care of him and his family for the rest of his life, but to say, no, I'm going to say no to all of that, and I'm going to go give of myself to my country. Recently, your board of directors went on a retreat for us to do some long-range planning on behalf of this ministry. At this retreat center, I pointed out to a couple of people one of the plaques in the cafeteria where they honor all the people who had donated money to help that camp to be there, that retreat center to be there, and on beautiful grounds in a lovely spot. And the motto says, or the word says, we sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We drink from wells that we did not dig. Now, beloved, you and I in this country enjoy the benefits of this country because other people wanted to serve. They ran for office. They passed laws. They governed. They took chances. And we know that all of our founding fathers lost everything that they ever owned. They were willing to sacrifice it all to establish a new order of a society. You and I sit in this church because the people that have gone on before us, that stayed at board meetings till 12 o'clock at night, that showed up many a Sunday morning with just a handful of people, that fought to pay the bills at a time when the money seemed to be short, that voted and discussed and argued and created what we have today. We are beneficiaries of all of those for almost the last 20 years. The 20th year, we believe, Jerry, next September, of this church. 19 years of people that have been contributing to this church to make it possible. Our teachers give every single Sunday morning. Our choir gives. Ushers, many people give to make possible your experience here this morning. Can we do anything less than to also adopt the mind of Christ, the heart of Christ, which was a giving heart? I want to close with a story that I promised to reuse. So when you hear it again, know that I've already warned you. But it is such a wonderful story because it gets us into understanding the idea of service. This minister was telling a story. He told about the stagecoach days when we traveled across this country in a stagecoach. And I didn't know this, but he says there's first class, second class, and third class passage on a stagecoach. Now, if you were in first class, and a wheel comes off of the stagecoach, you were not required to move. You just stayed in your seat. If you were second class, you were required to get off. You didn't have to do anything. You just had to get off the stagecoach. However, if you were in third class, you were required to get off and fix the wheel. And he told that story. And soon after that, he invited people to come down for membership. Come down for membership. So this husband and his wife, his teenage son and his two younger children all walked down the aisle and came down to the minister to join the church. And as the man came forward, he whispered in his ears, he said, we would like to have 5 third-class passages. 5 third-class memberships. A level of membership that says, I want to serve. I've been receiving. I come every single Sunday morning, and yes, I do put some in. I could probably put more in. But I've been receiving for a long time. And I know we need help with the children. I know we need somebody to cut the grass at the church. I know we need this. We need people to serve on marketing and stewardship and all the various committees that make this function. And I want to be a part of that. I want to give back because somebody else gave in order for me to receive the blessing that I've been receiving in this church. Beloved, if we look at our map, we look at Jesus, our way shore, and he says if we stay focused, we will achieve. And our focus must be on God, it must be in purpose, and it must be in the area of service. Because that is the path that when we understand it and follow it, will lead us home. And so it is. Amen.